Over the last few days, we've been talking about many things in terms of the biggest topics of the election coming up now, in less than a few days' time, really. And the next thing we move on to is health. Now, there's a huge amount, and the same as everything in Ireland, there's a huge amount of things to cover in each section. We'd be here all day if we were talking about everything, because it's really that fucked up. To be totally honest, the health service here is like a third world country. Imagine we're one of the richest countries in the world, and it's like a third world country. And it's not that we're not throwing enough money at it. It'd be different if it was underfunded. The 16 billion, nearly 20 billion probably going towards 20 billion just to say. Think about that for a second, going towards the HSE. But the problem in the HSE, and I think everybody agrees with me, is there's too many people at the top. There's too many people in an office sitting there doing fuck all, scratching themselves. And the person on the ground, you see it yourself if you go into Cavan General Hospital, the nurses that are having to go around the patients to deal with people dying, sick patients, etc., sick children, take example. There's only 2 or 3 of them, and there's about 50 of them in an office, all on the big wage. It's all on €400,000 of a wage. And that's the problem in the HSE. There's too many people at the very top, and there's not enough people on the ground. It's the same in everything in this country. It's the same in the Garda Síochána. There's too many people given the euros and stuff like that, but they're not willing to put in the work. They're at the desk typing away or sitting there scratching themselves. And that's the problem. The same with the CEO of the HSE. Hundreds of 400,000, 500,000 nearly a year in a wage, to example. And there's many things to be covered here, as I say. We could be here all day if we're talking, but I want to briefly just touch on the most important thing I think for me, and for everybody in the country should be, is scoliosis treatment for children. Now, there was promises made that they only have to wait a few months. They wouldn't have to wait. There's people waiting years. There's young children at 7, 8, some of them even younger, waiting for scoliosis treatment. And there was promised a few months ago by Simon Harris nobody would have to wait less than 5 months for the treatment. And again, this is fatal if it's not treated. There's probably children, unfortunately, have passed away waiting for treatment. There was one child in particular who was waiting for, I think it was 78 years for scoliosis treatment. He was taken off the list. Who knows? There was never an explanation given why he was taken off the list, because he still needs the treatment. I hope I haven't heard much about the case, but that was a few weeks ago. And hopefully he did get the operation in the meantime. Hopefully, please God, he did. But long story short, he was taken off the list. He waited for years. He suffered an agony for years. And I do think it's important that, and it's a difficult operation, and something that it does kill people if it's not treated, and it's a very complicated procedure. I think we can all agree on that. It's not like you can flip a switch, etc., etc. But it's the fact of the matter is there was promises made that they wouldn't have to wait 5 months, and then they didn't keep it. And especially such young children, again, with the whole lives ahead of them, and especially because, as I say, there's some of them probably not here today. And I do think as a country we should be demanding, not asking, demanding our politicians for better treatment for our young children like that's going through hell. It's not acceptable. It's just not. It shouldn't be tolerated. It's simple as that. It shouldn't be accepted. It shouldn't be just saying, "Oh, sure, look, we're doing our best." Simon Harris was saying all that. It's not good enough. Your best is not good enough in this situation. You have to do more than your best. You have to give it all to help these children. And again, that's the main thing I think we should ask our politicians in terms of health for scoliosis treatment. Then we move on to the trolley scandal. Now, I remember Enda Kenny when he was Taoiseach, nearly 15 years ago, more than that at this stage. When Enda Kenny, Fine Gael got into power and Enda Kenny was there, and he said, I end the trolley crisis in our hospitals. As we speak now in the local hospital here in Cavan, 15 people are on trolleys on the wards, sleeping on wards, elderly people. There's one person there, I think he's 70, and he's on the ward. Explain that to me. So much about ending the trolley crisis. We're still 15 years on. Take for example in Dublin, there's hundreds of people lying on trolleys. In Limerick, it's particularly bad. In Mayo, it's particularly bad too. And nothing was ever done about it. That promise was broken, and the usual crack. And again, I just want to give my personal opinion on it, my personal story on it too. Back a few years ago, my father had an operation, a very serious operation. But the ward wasn't good enough, so they put him in the janitor's closet, in the cleaner's closet, basically. So not a great thing for somebody that had an operation just after coming out of an operation. Threw him in the closet, basically. So that's just the HSE, the modern HSE in this country. And I'm still of the opinion that they probably still do it. And it's not, it shouldn't be acceptable, especially in the first world country. As I say, there's hundreds of billions of euro been thrown at it. And it's the fact of the matter, and as I say, the problem is there's too many people at the top. And then obviously move on to ambulance waiting times, etc., etc. There's people waiting, like in Monaghan there a few months ago, somebody had to wait in a football match. They got injured during the football match. 3 hours. 3 hours for an ambulance to turn up, and he had a leg injury. It took 3 hours for them to come. And that's because there's no accident emergency in Monaghan. They closed that down because they have an addiction to closing things down, it seems. But they have to come from Cavan, and obviously the ambulance service in Cavan is stretched to the limit, because that's the way they cover 2 counties now, because there's only one accident emergency in the 2 counties in Cavan. It used to be 2, because Monaghan closed down then. And the ambulances have to come from Cavan up to Monaghan to get people and then bring them back down to Cavan. It makes no sense, but sure, that's their logic. But and then I take, for example, in other parts of the country, in Kerry and Cork is pretty bad too. You could wait 2 hours to be seen to an ambulance, to get an ambulance to you. And people now, and that's obviously after killing hundreds of people. Let's be honest, every year as we speak about this now, even as we speak now every month, and today even, there's probably 2 people dead because an ambulance took too long to get there. Because let's be fair, you don't wing an ambulance for the laugh. You're pretty serious if you have to wing an ambulance. And again, if it's a car accident, something like that, and it's something that, every second counts. It really, really does. Every second, every minute counts to get somebody to a hospital, to get them treatment. And it's between life and death, it generally is. And especially here, so many young people are dying, etc., etc. And especially, again, I keep saying it's a first world country. And it's hundreds of billions a year just thrown at it, and there's no result space. That's what I mean to say. So there's a huge problem in management, and a huge problem with just giving money to high up knobs and not enough people on the ground. And again, just to mention another thing, with not really to do with health supplements, it does too, in terms of staffing. There was an embargo put on staff that wouldn't employ people for a few months there. Not now, but a few months ago there was. They wouldn't take on any extra people. So it made no sense, and there was people leaving, retiring. It's just no sense made of it at all. There's no logic at all in it. But long story short, there's so many Irish nurses, so many Irish doctors getting the degrees, etc., etc. And they come out of college, they have to leave because they can't afford rent, they can't afford to live in this country, and they go off to Australia. So, and it doesn't make sense. And then we're bringing in people from Timbuktu to be doctors, and they're saying every day of the week we need more doctors, we need more nurses. When there's Irish people literally leaving, there's probably, as we speak this year, probably 10,000 nurses and doctors that are Irish, studied in Ireland, etc., etc., going off to Australia, Canada, etc., etc. So it doesn't make any sense. So if you need the doctors, give them a better wage here, pay them. Because again, I will admit, I was in hospital when I was young with a mental health crisis. And nurses and doctors, they couldn't do enough for you. The people on the ground, they couldn't do enough for you. They generally couldn't. And they were so caring and so kind and done their best for you. And again, I remember 2 nurses in the ward I was in. That so many patients, but they always made sure they had time, and they worked their asses off. And again, they deserve a better wage, to be told, because it's a tough job, especially looking after sick kids. I seen one kid there that had a serious illness, and it's not a nice thing to have to do. And again, it takes courage to do that. So, and again, I just want to bring that it's not really to do with health. But then we have other problems too, like operation. Take for example, for operations, the waiting list as far as the eye could see. It's a joke, and so many people have to pay for private healthcare, etc., etc. It's not fair on people having to do that, and not even to mention mental health go into the mental health sector, etc., etc. It's a complete joke too. The whole lot of it's really just a joke. It's just total chaos, to be told. But again, we need to get a hold of this, because again, this is the serious thing. It's costing people's lives. It is generally costing people's lives. And every day as we speak, even when we're speaking now, there's probably 2 people dead, as I say, waiting for an ambulance, or being left in trolleys to die in the wards, etc., etc. That's what's happening. It's so sad to see. Especially because, again, it'd be different if we were a third world country, we didn't have the money for the HSE, etc. But there's money been thrown. There's hundreds of, as I say, nearly 30 billion being thrown at it. Like, everything in the kitchen sink has been thrown at it. And the money's going to the big knobs and offices, etc., etc. So that's the problem with the HSE. It generally is. But it's a tragedy. But anyway, let me know what you think. I know there's so many stories I could tell you. There's more. I could sit here for 5 hours and tell you everything I know. But the HSE and the problems in the health service, etc., etc., like the deep-rooted problems. And nothing really has ever changed. And that's the unfortunate thing. Nothing probably will ever change, unfortunately. But the people involved deserve better. And that's as simple as that. We deserve better. The people that are sick and the people who need help, etc., etc., deserve better. The children of this country, the next generation, deserve better. And the elderly people, of course, deserve better, because they built this country. They built the HSE. They built the state up. And they deserve better in their old age. They deserve better. People do deserve better. They deserve to get the care and attention they need. But again, the government slaps them in the face, and the usual.